Good morning. I'd like to get started if that's okay. Welcome back to Dreamforce, the Breakfast Club. Thanks for joining us so early in the morning. I hope you've enjoyed your experience so far. This morning's session is titled Managing Change, How to Win Friends and Influence People. We're going to hear from a couple of customers, a couple of your peers, about how they have been able to manage the change process within their organizations, managing up with their executives to develop some sponsorship, managing down and across the organizations to ensure buy-in from those communities, and all the while staying focused on the main goal, the predetermined goals for the project that they've set. There we go. Okay, this is our safe harbor statement. I'm sure you've seen this a few times this week, so I think you know what that's all about. Our agenda, we'll go through some introductions. We'll review the concept of change management. Then you'll hear from two of your peers, Joe Harris from Beazer Homes. Joe's going to speak to you about a first-time implementation that he managed. He had some very creative and effective ways to bring in different groups and have some really great results for his implementation. Then we'll hear from Laura Hendricks from the Freeman Company, who you've seen throughout the Moscone Center this week. Freeman's running this show. And Laura will speak about how she re-implemented Salesforce. They had their implementation wasn't on target, and Laura came in and put that back on focus. Then at the end of everything, you'll all have a chance to ask them some questions. Stay back here. My name's Tom Martin. I'm part of the customer success program here at Salesforce.com. As I said, I'm joined by Joe Harris. He's the director of IT at Beazer Homes in Atlanta. And Laura Hendricks, the director of CRM at the Freeman Company. And I'll let them describe their companies to you, their Salesforce implementation, some of the challenges that they faced as they were implementing. I would like to take a couple of minutes just to review the concept of change management and talk a little bit about what makes a change program successful. What are some of the key elements that you should try to pull from what you hear your peers talk about this morning? So for starters, driving change. Obviously, before you can get started, you really need to know where you want to end up. You need a solid, actionable plan that's going to involve all different layers, all different levels of your organization, no matter how big or small. Secondly, you need to learn how you will learn how your peers are gained executive buy-in. Sponsorship is key to these projects. You really need your executives to drive this throughout the organization, to live it, to demonstrate their dedication, their buy-in with what you're trying to accomplish. Be open to different approaches, hearing how other people are doing it, not just doing it one time, but creating a sustainable model of change. This is not a one-time process. It really is cyclical. It's something that you should do over and over again as time goes on. And part of the implementation is really what happens after preparing users or setting users up for success. And you'll hear about different innovative ways to provide training to your users, whether they're in one location or spread out in multiple different offices. And you will hear both Joe and Laura speak about the different innovative ways that they drove change within their organizations. So principles of change management. These are some of the key elements that we see from customers like yourselves who have implemented successful change management processes. Sponsorship, I mentioned it before. It's key, absolutely necessary to have buy-in from your top executives. They have to set the tone that this is something that's going to happen, it's going to be good for the organization, and it's something necessary. Sorry. There we go. Again, visible support of key decision makers throughout the organization. Can't quite find the right spot to stand. There we go. Planning. Planning is key. You need to be very methodical and deliberate about what you're trying to accomplish and how you're going to get there. before you do anything, make sure that you commit everything to writing so that you can always go back and reference things and measure your progress against those written goals. Measurement. Obviously, you need to create some metrics that are relevant to what you're trying to accomplish, that speak to the goals that you've set in the planning phase, and you need to take measurements along the way throughout the whole process. Engagement. That you really need to open up the lines of communication across the whole organization. Be open to feedback. Be open to people's concerns. Change can really create a lot of concerns, a lot of fear, really, in the people who are going to be affected by it, the sponsors who are driving the initiatives. There can be a lot of personal value at stake for these people. So you really need to open up the lines of communication. Then lastly, the support structures in place. You can see here that you really need to make sure that both the people implementing the process and the end users have enough the proper resources at the right time in the right place to drive the change as well. And this, we'll talk about training. We'll talk about, you'll hear today about how your peers were able to do this at their organizations. Now, on the flip side, what we at Salesforce have seen from customers who have not had successful programs, why their change initiatives have failed. It's the absolute flip side of everything we just talked about. Absence of change champion, absence of that sponsorship, or someone, the sponsor in the organization is just not senior enough to drive the change, to get the buy-in, to give the directives. Weak project management skills. The people can't diagram or outline what needs to happen and how it needs to happen, who needs to be involved. And we're not talking necessarily about technical skills. As you know, Salesforce isn't that technical of a service. It's really just someone who is managing the project. Hope resting on one-dimensional solution, political infighting. You can see that this really all goes back to the planning stage. You're not identifying your goals, you're not identifying what you need to accomplish, and you're not getting the buy-in from the other groups to get here. So who should be involved? What we've seen in terms of successful change plans, the people and the groups that are involved in these are, number one, the users. Any customer-facing personnel, anyone who's going to be actually using the service that you're implementing, you really need to get their feedback in terms of what they need to use the service, and also what they need to, what they're trying to accomplish in their day-to-day job. There might be things that you can include in your implementation or issues that they're dealing with that you're not aware of. So be sure you understand what the end user faces day-to-day, what kind of challenges. Sorry. Admins. Obviously, the admin is a key person to the whole process. You need to get them involved. Make sure that you set up a process where end user feedback can go to a person or a group, and how that will be managed, how it will be escalated throughout the process. A change control committee. This is something that's key, and something that I deal with as a customer success manager, is the center of excellence, the governance within your whole implementation. You really need to get a group put together a group that represents all the different organizations within your company, and get their feedback. Make sure everyone's on board with the changes you're about to make, why you're making them, and what the benefit will be as well. Must be me. Okay. And again, we're back to sponsorship. I can't stress this enough. The leader of the Change Control Committee is really the person who sets the course for this whole project that you're embarking on. They will set the priorities. They'll make sure that everyone is aligned with those, has bought into what you're trying to accomplish, and that ultimately that they serve the company's overall business goals. So that's a very high-level overview of the change management process. I'm going to turn it over to Joe Harris right now, the Director of IT at Beazer Homes. As I said, Joe was responsible for a very innovative, very creative way, you'll see, to implement Salesforce across his organization. He hit on every one of the tenets that we just talked about with executive sponsorship, with key training. He provided very creative resources for training to his end users, and got buy-in across the organization. So I will turn it over to Joe, let him explain a little bit about Beazer Homes and what he did. Here you go, Joe.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good luck with that.
Yeah, I think it's up here. Right?
There we go.
Just tell you a little bit about Beazer Homes. We're a top 10 home builder across the country based on the number of closings per year. And Beazer is one of our main focus in the downturn of the home building market right now is to focus on our customers and making sure that that actually separates us from our competitors. And doing that, our executives actually decided to spend the time and money and efforts into exploring a new CRM system. Just tell you a little bit about myself. I've been working for Beazer for about 11 years now. I've worked from IT to the business side, and audit, and actually out to the field as a VP of Finance at one of our divisions. Decided to come back to corporate in an IT role. So this project kind of fit for me really well because I understood on the field level of what they experience every day trying to make sales out there, as well as on the IT side, and be able to speak for both parties. There we go. Just to give you a quick summary of our implementation and how it went. We implemented 455 sales users. We're swapping out our old CRM system, as well as roll out an effective change management plan. That plan is still in place today. We've been live with all of our divisions for about 4 or 5 months now, and it's going really well. We're still having a few struggles, but we're modifying our change management program to adjust to those. We actually partnered up with Blue Wolf as a consultant company, a partner of Salesforce, to actually help our implementation. And they were very instrumental in giving us the guidance that we needed to actually go through that process of our change management. So the initial project, that once we actually got that initial project assigned to us, unfortunately it was assigned to IT. That happened 6 years ago when we rolled out our first CRM application, and it didn't work. So the CIO and myself, once we got the whole team together, we just said we need to push this back to the business. This is not something that IT can roll out and be successful about it without the business being involved. You'll hear me talk more about that later. We had no adoption plan on our first implementation, so we wanted to make sure that we actually really, truly had an adoption policy and program in place as we rolled this out. And at the same time, our executives was changing our business strategy for sales. We actually were implementing a sales call center. So not only were we putting in a new application, we were planning on changing the whole process for our entire sales group. So getting the sales management team was one of our top challenges to get them to adopt it, and then that trickles down to the users. Managing the executives. The executives were on board because they were the ones who brought it to us. We just had a few of them. We wanted all of them to get involved. We wanted them all to be on the same page and really understand where we were going. And anytime we mentioned the word CRM, they thought the system. And we were trying to change their mind frame that CRM is a process of actually keeping our customers engaged. And once we actually tried to get them to understand that, they really jumped on board and tried to make some things work for us. We actually put together a customer experience task force team that included VP of sales across our divisions out in the field, even down to the new home counselors who sit in our models and sell the homes. So everyone was involved in that process. Then, you'll hear me later talk about how they, all through the process, helped us make decisions. They did UAT. They're involved in the implementation. The summary of our work in that beginning initial phase was we interviewed, and actually Blue Wolf went out independently and actually interviewed all of our users. And they came back and reported to us and said, here's your problems. This is where we need to focus your energy and time on your change management as well as in the application. I think that was huge. And by them interviewing them without a Beazer employee actually asking them, they're going to make it nice. They said, be blunt, and they actually let them have it. We also modified the sales process, as I mentioned, putting in a new call center, and we developed some success factors early on. We also developed an adoption video, and I'll talk about that a little bit later. But one thing our CIO, she actually made a good statement that this is not just another application invitation, but a improvement of our customer experience using the CRM as a tool. And that was kind of our theme, is CRM is the application is a tool to our customer management that we need to, customer relationship management that we're trying to establish. So our adoption and training plan, we had our executive leadership in place. We had multiple of them actually sending emails. We actually had like a schedule, and we put it on their calendars, and we would type up the template, and they would hit send, and we were sending these out to all of the users. We had our sales VP send it out to the sales management group. We had our senior executive, COO, actually send it out to the entire sales staff. And it was periodically, and so they heard about Salesforce so much that they were so anticipating it when it got here. We scheduled those communications to those users, and then we did a video. The video came from us trying to make sure that the users, it wasn't an IT project, and it was going to help our company in the down market be better and ready for when the housing market comes back. I'm going to actually show this video real quick to you guys. It was about 15 minutes long. We actually cut it down to about 5 minutes, and we'll show you what some of the things that we talked through.
Hello, I'm Joe Harris, and I'm serving as the project manager for our search and implementation of a new CRM system. As many of you have heard, we're replacing our current CRM system, Pivotal, with a new system. This is something that has been discussed for almost 2 years now. I'm happy to report that we're ready to roll out Salesforce.com as a replacement. Hello, Ian. Will you please share with us your perspective of why, during this tough economic time, is Beazer spending resources and time necessary to implement a new CRM system?
Well, Joe, you're right. This is a very tough time economically and in the home building industry. And I think that's the first reason to invest in Salesforce.com today, to give everyone the best tools possible. They can make sales and be efficient in that way. We also know that the market will recover at some point in the future. And when that happens, we're going to see more prospects. We'll have to be even more efficient in how we handle those prospects. And I think that's the second reason for investing today in Salesforce.com.
So that means, for example, we have a complete email address in the correct format. We have a complete address so we can match back to target profile. That if there are more than one source driving that traffic, we're capturing all of those sources, and then we can target our marketing efforts accordingly.
My expectation is that they use it. I mean, number one, it's a requirement of the position, and we intend to really enforce that requirement. But I'd like to tell all the new home counselors to give it a chance. You know, I've said I was not a technical sales counselor. I didn't believe in a system until I really started using it. And I would say the same thing for them. Give it some time. It takes, 21 days, they say, to develop a habit. Give it a few weeks. Make yourself use it if you're not inclined to do so. Because I guarantee you, I've been in your shoes, I've been in your chair. It will help save you time and money.
Well, we talked about it. I think when we were using Pivotal, we didn't have full buy-in and support from the team, and there's reasons for that. But with this new program with Salesforce, I think we've really put a better program and process in the field. And my expectations are that everybody will get on board and support it.
I believe Salesforce.com will help us sell more homes because the system itself is a lot more user-friendly. It's a lot faster, and it takes a lot less time to input the customer's information into the system, keeping the focus on the potential buyer, which is where it needs to be.
With Pivotal, when you log in each day, it doesn't really give me an idea of where I stand as far as managing my business. with Salesforce.com, as soon as I come in and I log into the system, right away I know where I stand as far as reaching my goals.
When we decided to change to a new CRM process, Martin Hernandez from sales, Kathy James from marketing, and Ken Dorn from customer care, and of course myself from IT, guided by Michael Furlow as our executive sponsor, created a customer experience task force. That task force was made up of VP of the Division of Sales and NIMS and new home counselors and of course marketing representatives from the field.
The way we've designed Salesforce.com to fit Beazer Homes, we've designed it so that it follows our critical path sales process. Now, I'm not saying, and I've said this before, that the critical path is a magic bullet or the secret to sales. What it does for us, though, as salespeople, is it keeps us on target. It keeps us on task with all the steps that we really have proven need to be shown to a customer that's looking to buy a house. Number two, the background behind this whole decision was really focused on increasing our customer's experience. And what I mean by that is making it more topical for the customer with what they're looking for. Because it saves the new home counselors time, because it keeps us more focused on the steps that we still need to get to with that customer, it improves the customer experience because it's more on the lines of what they want to find out about with Beazer. And because of that, a new customer experience, a better customer experience, lends itself to more sales. And at the end of the day, that's really the goal.
As you can tell from those discussions, the time to invest in Salesforce.com is now. But, as with any tool, it's only effective when it's used. Thank you.
All right. Well, let's talk about that video a little bit. Like I mentioned, we put that together so we can actually get our users to understand. This wasn't something that we're just throwing at them from an IT perspective, but as a business, we needed something to give us more information, better information to make better decisions when we needed to make those hard choices. Just like the video, I was managing the whole project, and Martin Hernandez, our VP of Sales, was actually the one who was kind of coordinating most of the video, and he was actually going to be the interviewee, the interviewer. And he asked me, he was like, Joe, since you're the project manager, why don't you be one of the guys I interview? And I said, okay, sure. So we got that set up, and I got out to one of our models where we actually filmed it, and I got there, and they handed me a script where now I'm the interviewer, and everybody else is the interviewee. I think it worked out the best because Martin, being our VP of Sales, needed to be the one who's speaking the most and hearing that. But they threw me in a situation just like we're about to put our users in a situation of changing things quickly. And I had to adjust quickly. So the back of my head was in most of the video the whole time. Some other things that we did is as we went along and prepared our users for Salesforce coming was features of the week. That was, again, something that Blue Wolf actually suggested that we do. We tried to pull out a theme, a movie theme, and so we grabbed some different screenshots of movies, and the features of the week actually pinpointed before implementation things that were difficult in our current CRM that will be seamless in the new CRM. So it was really a way for us to show them that, hey, we're going to make your life easier. We're going to make your life easier. So just showing you a couple examples of those. And it's pretty fun. I mean, we send them out on Fridays, and it has, like I said, a movie theme. And most of the comments in that movie theme actually relates to the items that we're actually talking about in there. So on the training side, we have about 19 different divisions across the country. We actually visit each one of those to do the training. We didn't want to do a big bang because of the way we wanted to actually make it personable and make the training really live for them, as well as we were changing the business process of the sales process. So that, I think, made a difference in just pushing a button and we're live and we do some online training versus us actually being in front of them and talking them through the process. Again, a member of that customer experience task force team I mentioned earlier was at every single training. So when the process questions came up of, well, why'd you change it to this? We handed it over to the business, and they answered that question instead of IT trying to answer a business question. We trained in production, so when they left, they were live, and we just can turn off their old CRM access the day of their training. So it was live right in training when we went. Like I said, we did the regional and divisional training. the data migration was I think the hardest part of this implementation, because we had so much data in our old system that we had to get over. As far as the configuration and the build out and some of the few custom things we built into Salesforce for our org was fairly simple and quickly done. It was the migration piece that kind of slowed us down, and that's why we actually took a longer process to implement, because we had to migrate each individual division at a time. Getting that early adoption was key. We also had a sales contact center that we were rolling out at the same time. So that sales contact center was getting more calls for each division that we rolled out. So they had to hire new people. We had to pop them back in Phoenix and getting them trained. And so it was a busy time around that time frame. The success, we planned the executive based on the internal requirements. Those internal requirements were very detailed. They continue to change because our process was changing. And as the users started using the application, they had more ideas and different things, and we tried to hold them off for a little while, but some of them were very important things that we needed to make changes on the fly fairly quickly. Our ongoing training and adoption that we have right now, that Customer Experience Task Force team is still in place. We switched members out so that everyone kind of get an equal chance to talk and understand some of the things that we're doing. And what they're there for is, if we have a list of enhancements, they actually help us review those, prioritize those, and roll them out to the field. We have a learning management system that we do a lot of our training online, and that's it there. And when the users go there, that is a pretty simple process. Actually, it's Cornerstone, who's integrated with Salesforce, so we actually pull over some information from there as well, where they can take their different courses. We've created e-learns. We have that video out there for new employees. We also have even tutorials that actually walk them through very simple steps, for example, of putting an account record in the system. We actually use the Documents tab. All of our documentation, so it's readily available for our users, is directly in the Documents tab, so they can quickly find the information. One thing that we did that was key was that first when you see their data dictionary, a lot of our terminology changed on the sales side. Now we have a call center, we got a new system. Some of those little terminologies changed, so we actually put out a data dictionary and made sure we reviewed that in class, and as you see, the first thing posted on our documentation. We did implement Ideas. Ideas is they're really good for us, for the users to actually give us and tell us exactly what they want. They vote those things up, and we're able to, actually they're prioritizing things for us. They use it every day. They look at us as the experts, but I call them the experts. They're the one using it every single day. We know the functions and activities within the system, but they're the ones who know the process flow that they should be using. So we actually put in some success criteria. We graded ourselves. Actually, when we go out to the divisions to actually do some retraining, we actually ask our management team, are we hitting on these? And we know we have some improvement to continue to do, and those are the things that we're working on now, is to increase some of those items that are still not complete. The same with our success factors. Our main thing is we want to continue to communicate to our users, keep the door open so that we're giving them information, they're giving us information in multiple different ways of communication. Analytics, and right now this is, I think, our biggest issue right now is we have more data than we had before, and now they don't know how to use it. And we're trying to hone that in. Actually, Blue Wolf is helping us with that as well, where we're actually going to. We had all these different dashboards for our sales managers, for our new home counselors, for our division presidents, and it was a little too much. So we're actually scaling back, the sales management dashboard to be only 6 tiles instead of the 20 tiles we had out there. They were like, I don't know what to look at first. So we actually are partnering up with our Atlanta division, who actually sells homes there in Atlanta, and sat with their sales manager to actually go through the details of what do you review in your sales meeting. And he started naming things off, like I want to see activity, how many appointments they have, and what type of leads came in, if they were good quality leads. And I said, well, have you looked at your dashboard lately? Because you have your A, B, and C leads. You have your appointments for the last 30 days. You have, overdue task. I said, you can really see everything you want to. So he's actually starting to use, Salesforce on screen in his sales meeting, which is making a big difference for that division. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over. You guys, if you have any questions later, you can do it in the Q&A session, okay? Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. The key takeaways for me from Joe's speech is that he put together a project that touched on everyone, benefited everyone in the organization, spoke directly to the business's objectives, driving new home sales, especially in a down market, and ultimately made everyone, the end users, work better. We heard from a lot of different people there, Joe. That was a great job. I want to introduce you now to Laura Hendricks from the Freeman Company. Laura will talk about how she revitalized an underutilized Salesforce implementation at the Freeman Company and what it took to do that. Laura?
Good morning, everybody. Oops, went too far. As Joe said, I'm with Freeman Company. Many of you in the audience probably know Freeman. You may have worked with us. Freeman is a leading provider of services for face-to-face marketing events in North America. So that means we produce trade shows, conventions, exhibitions, corporate events. We're producing Dreamforce here this week. We'll do anything as small as table and chair rentals for a church social to something as large as what you see on the screen, which is the 2008 Republican National Convention. We do more than 4,000 expositions each year and more than 11,000 corporate events. And we have locations in 40 major cities across the U.S. and Canada and have been users of Salesforce for about 5 years now with approximately 875 users, primarily in sales. A little bit about me. I frequently get stopped in the hall. People say, were you the person on the banner at a previous Dreamforce? So that was me. But I've been with Freeman about 2.5 years as the director of CRM. I was brought in post-implementation, as Tom mentioned, to revitalize an implementation that just hadn't taken off the way that the company expected it to. My experience with Salesforce as a customer goes back about 7 years, however. Some of the challenges that I faced whenever I first joined Freeman, like I say, they had low adoption. They had phased in the implementation, starting with one small sales unit. It had grown to about 900 users across all of our sales units, and the adoption was running at about 60%. It was interesting at first glance because it seemed that Freeman had done all the things necessary for a successful implementation. They had good executive sponsorship, worked with a top-notch consulting partner, had done a very thorough business process review, did training on site in all the locations. But as I dug in a little bit, what I realized is that they had really done this in silos. There had been no single champion in the organization that was overseeing the implementation. So each of the different sales divisions were working with the consulting partner independently. They all had different goals and objectives that really conflicted with each other. And what you ended up with was essentially 3 completely different implementations living in the same org. It led to things like inappropriate security settings, a bad data migration, very conflicting processes. The users were frustrated and the adoption was low. The first step that I decided I needed to take, being new to the company, was really to survey the users and get a baseline of information on what everybody's thoughts were about the implementation, what was working, what wasn't working. So I put together a pretty thorough survey and surveyed all levels, starting with the executive key stakeholder level all the way down to every user, right down to the administrative staff in our branch locations who helped manage data. And we did this across all of our sales divisions. It really provided a couple of key benefits for me trying to turn around the implementation. It gave me a very clear view of what each group's unique perspectives were on what the problems were, which was interesting when it came back because what the perceived problems were across the different groups was very different. A lot of finger pointing, a lot of political infighting. But it gave me real visibility to that. It also provided documentation for me to begin to build that roadmap for turnaround and to keep us on track, so that as we started making those changes, I always had that data to reference, and we wouldn't start chasing a rabbit and get sidetracked off of fixing what our core problems really were. The next thing that I did, this was really a time-consuming thing. There were so many executive leaders that had been involved in the initial implementation that really felt ownership of it. A little suspicious of me coming in from the outside. Who is this person? What are they going to do to our Salesforce implementation? But I took a couple months, really. I analyzed and summarized all the survey data and took a couple months scheduling one-on-one meetings with every single one of these sales leaders. This was almost 20 people by the time it was the executives and the key stakeholders in all of our sales divisions. I spent a couple hours with each of them, heard their pain points, heard what things were most important to them, and trying to run their sales divisions, heard their frustrations about maybe what other groups were doing that was impacting their data. And I shared the survey results with them, which for most of them was eye-opening, because they didn't realize that maybe some of the things they were doing might have been impacting another division as well. The biggest thing that I think these face-to-face meetings accomplished was really getting trust from the sales leaders. I was building trust with them that when I came back and started recommending some pretty massive changes, that they would believe in me and support me as I started trying to move the organization along. The next thing we did, this is something that's cultural at Freeman that we do. When we have a big topic that needs lots of executive attention, we have a summit. That might be a half-day summit, it might be an all-day summit, but we tend to have a lot of summits. So we had a Salesforce summit, and this was planned as a half-day meeting. I knew that I had been successful in buying trust from our executives when almost 24 of them agreed to commit half a day to come talk about this topic, which I'm not sure I would have gotten that buy-in had I not taken the time to get to know each of them individually. But we had representation from sales, marketing, IT, sales administration, my entire Salesforce team, which consists of several administrators. And we realized in preparing for this summit that we needed to do more than just go in and talk about what our recommended solutions were. Everybody had been talking about it. We had been implemented for 2 years and everybody thought they knew. So as a team, we realized we needed to go ahead and build the solutions and build it all the way through to show them the reporting and dashboard impact at the end. That unless they could see it, touch it, feel it, we probably were not going to be successful in getting the buy-in we needed to move forward with the changes. So that's what we did. And I expected a lot of conversation, a lot of pushback between the units, because that's what I had seen in my 6 months at Freeman at this point. But the groundwork that we did leading up to this summit proved to be very successful. The summit did not take a half day as we expected. It took about 2.5 hours. And there was little discussion. There was quick head nodding and approvals that, yes, this is what we need. Go do it. So I know our team felt a big success after that. But I think the real key there truly was building the solution in advance to really show them. You said this was a pain point. We're recommending this change, and we realize this looks like a massive change, but here's what you're going to get as a result. And they liked the results. After we got the approval, of course, they wanted to know how quickly we can implement all this. Can you do it yesterday? Okay, we've got to put together a little plan here. So we had some more building to do to finish building out the solutions that we had showed them, during the summit. And word started leaking from our executives down to the users that some big changes were going to come, some things that might upset their apple cart in terms of their process or how they were used to doing things, and quickly realized that our users were becoming a little anxious. And so we put together a communication plan. You'll see in the lower right-hand corner here, this is a letterhead from a Salesforce email template. We got with our marketing team and asked them to design a branded letterhead that we could use so that as we were communicating with our users over the coming months, when they'd get one of those emails that had that Salesforce Scoop branding, they knew that there was some important announcement about a big change coming. They wouldn't just gloss over it in their email, that when they saw that letterhead, they knew they better pay attention. So we put that together and started peppering them with weekly emails, maybe bi-weekly. It depended on what was appropriate, given the changes we were making. But the tack that we took in communicating with them, we always referenced that original survey. The more we got into this process, the more I was glad that I had done that, because we would constantly reference that. Remember when you said you couldn't get this one report to work right? Well, we're going to be making a change. It's going to be a process change for you. You're going to have to get used to it, but we're going to fix this problem that you told us was your biggest pain point. And we would constantly kind of take that approach. And as we were finishing doing the building and the configuration and getting all the reports ready to be rolled out, we would constantly remind them of this, and it seemed to ease the anxiety that just goes along with large organizational change. The next thing we had to do was plan the rollout. Now, as I mentioned in the opening, we're a face-to-face marketing company, so we certainly believe in being face-to-face and doing our training internally. However, by the time it came to roll out, this was shortly after the bottom of the economy had fallen out, and I didn't have a travel budget for my team anymore. So we had to kind of quickly reevaluate how we were going to get 900 users across North America on board with some big change without being able to go out and have at least one of my team members in front of them helping them. So we did a couple of things. First, we got back in front of that original summit group, those key executives that told us to run with this massive change. And we put all of it in front of them again to get that final buy-in. We knew that we would get pushback from some users. Freeman is a company that's been in business 80 years and has a lot of 20, 30, 40-year employees. It's a culture that's difficult to change. So we really wanted that final buy-in from our executive group that when people start screaming, you're going to back us up on this. And they did. We updated all of our tip sheets and training materials, and much as Joe showed, we organized all of that in the Documents tab. We also sent it out via our Salesforce Scoop letterheads with links that pointed them back into the application so they could access those. And we put together a series of live WebEx trainings, and we did this in phases. Each of our branch locations has someone that's kind of a designated Salesforce super user, so to speak. We started with that group to get them on board with the changes we were making, make sure they understood them. They were going to be the point person, the first line point person when people had questions as the changes came. So we wanted to make sure they were fully educated and aware of what was coming. The next phase of WebEx we did was with all of our directors of sales in these locations. We let them know that their super user had been trained and was on board with the changes, and let them know what our plan was for educating their sales staff. Then the third wave of WebExes obviously was to educate the sales staff. So we did all this and rolled out our first major change and really thought we had done a great job of communicating, especially given the challenges we had without being able to be face-to-face. And we reached out to the organization for some feedback, some affirmation that yes, this change went well. And much to our surprise, we heard a resounding response that was, "You didn't communicate enough." And I thought, how did that happen? How did we possibly not communicate enough? But I pulled my team together and we brainstormed, and one of my team members came up with the greatest idea, and it was to put together a Salesforce call center, so to speak, for the first 3 days after we rolled out a major change. Now, all of our users know who their admin is. They know our phone number. They could have picked up the phone and called us, but for some reason, letting them know that we were all going to be in a room together, dedicated, doing nothing else. We weren't going to have meetings. We weren't going to whatever. We were going to be in a room with a live line that they could call at any time for those 3 days following the changes seemed to really be the thing that made them feel like the change had gone well. So we let them know what the information was about that line via our Salesforce Scoop communications. We also put it on the homepage of the application so that they would know what number to call. And me and my administrators sat in a conference room together for 3 days. We got to know each other well and took calls. So, you know, we had tried to update as many reports or different things as we knew existed, but people always have things in their personal folder that might have been affected by our configuration changes or things like that. And they could call in, and one of us would be live and ready to help them. And that seemed to be the thing that when we reached out for feedback again, that they said, yes, that helped us through the change. So what kind of results did we see? One, the most measurable result that we saw was that our adoption skyrocketed. We had been running a pretty consistent login rate for almost 2 years of about 61%. Up to today, we consistently run into the mid-90s, and we saw that improve over about the first 45 days after we implemented our 5 really large changes. Some of those were configuration changes, some of them were process changes, but we saw adoption skyrocket immediately. A lot of our processes were simplified and streamlined. We had some processes that might require a salesperson to initiate 4 or 5 or 6 tasks just to get a piece of information updated. Well, now they could not only see the information, but they could update it themselves. So it really streamlined a lot of our processes. We saw that our teams began working more collaboratively. We made some pretty massive changes to our security model with all this. And now that they were able to see data and collaborate and work as a team, we saw a lot of that political infighting kind of dissipate, and our teams start working together better. And our reporting accuracy improved dramatically. That was really one of the things that drove the need for the change to start with, was that the system had been designed without thinking through what the long-term reporting needs were going to be, and then they couldn't get the reports they wanted. So that was a lot of what drove our reconfiguration. So the reporting accuracy improved dramatically. I think I went too far. So in conclusion, in terms of lessons learned on this, the configuration and process changes we made probably could have been accomplished in 6 weeks, but we took 9 months doing this because we knew we had to bring a large organization that was a little bit resistant to change along with us. It was going to be a little bit like turning the Titanic. And so we really took the time to deal with the people issues that are involved in big change. And I would say that the project of re-implementing, much to my surprise, not what I would have thought going in, but it was at least 75 winning friends and influencing people. I mean, it truly was. The configuration and process change was the easy part. The other lesson learned that I would advise to all of you who are trying to impact large organizational change is don't underestimate the value of involving your users, and not just your executive sponsors. We hear a lot about executive sponsorship in these meetings, and that is critical and it's very important. But the more you can involve your users all the way down, the more that they tend to take ownership of it and accept the changes that you're trying to make. So with that, I'm going to hand it back over to Tom.
Great. Okay. Thank you very much, Laura. I think a great point that was on one of your slides, and you may have underestimated or not really highlighted enough, is that the training that you provided was at no cost.
It was. Our budget was gone. So we had to think of a way to roll out without any expense.
Right. That's really key. And the results you got are just amazing.
Yeah.
Oops, sorry. Let me just open up the floor. We still have about 10 minutes for any questions that you might have for Joe or Laura. So I'll open the floor. If you can come up to the microphones, we'll go from here.
With respect to the training that you just talked about, how did you gain the internal competency to really be able to roll that out so that your internal experts were the experts and you didn't have to reach out to either consultants or spend money that way?
You know, at that point in our implementation, we were not using an outside consultant. I am fortunate to have a very talented team of administrators that work with me, and they are all definitely subject matter experts. They take a lot of time training the key super users in the groups they support, though, and we definitely, especially since we're regionally diverse, we utilize those people in our branch locations to be that first line of defense. So.
Joe, let me ask you a question. At the beginning of your video, you mentioned that there was a 2-year process to decide to move forward with Salesforce. Can you talk a little bit about the time frame it took you to actually implement, and what was involved in that? Okay. I think, and I ask you that because I think timeline's important, and you touched on data quality and the importance of that to your organization too.
We took our time. Of course, our executives gave us a deadline, which was like April, which was like it was about a 6-month time period. And once we started doing some of the discovery and understanding how we wanted to do the migration of our data, This change management plan we wanted to put in place, we came back and said that April date's not going to work for us, you know, and they said, why not? And then we showed them all the details behind what we're trying to do, and we wanted to be successful with the plan. They went ahead and gave us a kitchen pass on, you know, hitting a specific date. So it did take us about eight months to get all the way through from actually selecting Salesforce to getting the last division implemented. So we started like probably in January, and we didn't finish until August. So it was a fun 8 months.
Again, a slow, deliberate process,
Yeah.
and the results speak for themselves.
Yep.
That's great. Does anyone else have any other questions?
This is a question for Joe. You talked about the customer experience task force. Can you tell me a bit about the remit for them, and if they are user customer experience, or is it your actual end customer experience task force?
Well, it's our group of people that are in the field, you know, really experiencing what our customers actually deal with. The warranty issues that they deal with on their home, the selling process that the customer will go through. These are mostly like the sales managers and new home counselors, and we're focused on our individual customer, not IT's customer as the user of a system. But we wanted to concentrate on the customer experience. So every time we actually was going to make a change in the system, or you know, create a new workflow that adds, you know, 3 tasks to a new home counselor because they had a new walk-in to their community, we were thinking about the customer. You know, the customer, you know, put myself in that situation where if I'm trying to purchase a home and I visit, if that new home counselor or that salesperson actually contacts me over the next month, you know, 5 times, you know, is it badgering, or is it, you know, trying to warm them up to find out if they're really ready to sell? Well, with that, we were trying to classify some of those leads that were coming in as A, B's, or C's. Well, the C, we would spread that contact over a 3-month period. If it's an A, we're going to hit them pretty hard because they showed more interest in buying a home, that they were already qualified, and, you know, and we had the product that they liked. So we're going to hit them a little bit harder than somebody that's a C. So we just want to keep B's in front of them so that when they are ready to buy or financially able to buy, you know, they'll remember us, you know, from our marketing and from our contact. Did that answer your question? Yeah, thank you.
I think that's great. It's just an extension beyond your internal users and out to the ultimate customer experience, which obviously is the business goal as well. So that's great. Well, if there are no other questions, I'll thank you for your time this morning. I hope you found it to be well spent, and enjoy the rest of your Dreamforce. Thank you.